Welcome to From the Shed End, episode 141, with myself, Theo, as always. The other Theo, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I love my Fridays. I've just had my last few work calls and I can enjoy the rest of the Friday afternoon. Looking forward to the weekends, looking forward to the Christmas week, Christmas Eve, Boxing Day, all festivities next week.
Yeah.
And just really just enjoy some downtime and a bit of a pause from work. So yeah, looking forward to the next few weeks. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Very similar to yourself, just enjoying the countdown has begun. We're not going to discuss mulled wine after last week, but definitely looking forward to sort of just relaxing, getting some football in, darts. There's so much sport on over the Christmas period. I think if anyone's into the NFL as well, we've got all the games on the NFL coming up. But if you're new here, as always, please make sure you subscribe. Please make sure you like this video. As I said yesterday, we did a couple of videos yesterday, a couple of videos this week actually. But again, like I keep saying, this is a small channel. We're slowly growing gradually. So we do appreciate everyone that is currently following the accounts, following the social accounts and all the rest of it. There's a Linktree link in the description as well. So make sure you hit that before you leave this video. But the first place we have to start on this episode this week is around Mykhailo Mudryk, with the news that broke very late Monday night, which I think took all Chelsea fans by surprise, was that he did fail, or has allegedly failed, a doping banned substance from sports. He's failed that. His A sample, has come back with a banned substance within the testing, which I think took place during an international break whilst he was away with Ukraine. These are random drug tests that the players have to go through the regulatory boards that they have and the procedures that are in place. But we are currently waiting for the B sample to come back, which could take a couple of weeks. But it's not looking very good for Mykhailo Mudryk if found guilty. Lengthy ban is potentially going to be on the cards for him. But Theo, what do you think? What's your whole take on everything? We've always had a couple of days to kind of digest the news, and he's now, I think, indefinitely or provisionally been banned from playing for Chelsea. So what's your thoughts on everything?
Well, he should be able to try to cover up that talent ain't enough tattoo now, shouldn't he? Because clearly you need more than talent if you want to perform at the elite level. But no, it did come as a big shock. I even WhatsApped you on Monday night saying I was actually slowly warming towards Madrid slightly because I was very, very critical of him last season and the season before. Whereas I feel this season he kind of just felt like he was focusing more on his football. He got rid of his silly haircut. He was performing in the Conference League, and even that goal he scored against Heidenheim was probably one of our goals of the season, I felt. And then was ill I say ill in between inverted commas, for the Southampton game. Then he missed out the Astana game. Then I think it was the Brentford game there as well in between. And and then the news broke out on I think it was a few Ukrainian Twitter sources reporting that he tested positive. And then the following day, the Tuesday, is when kind of all the really kind of legitimate reports were coming out about it. It's disappointing. It's really disappointing because as a football club, you never want any of your players to be involved in that because it's not just a good image for the player, but it's also a bad image for the club itself, who are hiring this player that should be doing the required tests to kind of make sure that he's not taking these type of substances. It seems, for one thing, I will say is it happened on international duty, hopefully, so Chelsea maybe don't have full control of that. I know that Mudryk as well, from what he posts on Instagram and clearly the type of player he is. He likes to spend a lot of time in gyms with personal trainers, and it's something that a lot of football clubs don't really like players to do. But he does a lot of time with kind of fitness coaches outside of the football club, I think. And it could easily be maybe someone like a bad influence coach that maybe kind of told him to take this, so he didn't even give him the full kind of ramifications of what was getting involved, and he just took it thinking it would help with recovery or his building some muscle. But I think 3 days ago, so The Athletic reported, as told by multiple sources who wish to remain anonymous, Mudryk tested positive for meldonium following international duty of Ukraine in November. And meldonium is an anti-ischemia medication, which, according to the USADA, is typically used clinically to treat heart conditions such as low blood flow to the heart and angina. For athletes, it can assist with endurance and a capacity to recover from exercise. So clearly, there is some kind of performance-enhancing kind of benefits to this
Yeah.
substance. I think it's the same one that Sharapova
Yeah.
tested for. She got a really lengthy ban. We also, from a football in the football world, Pogba recently got done for doping. Originally was facing 4 years. It got reduced to 18 months, but he still had his contract terminated with Juventus, and now he's
Yeah.
still searching for a club. So I think it's a tricky situation now for everyone involved with Chelsea, all parties, and Mudryk, his agent, his team, the club, because you've got a player on such a lengthy contract, and he's on our books. He can't train, he can't play. I'm sure we'll get another update on kind of the length of his ban in the next couple of weeks if the second sample comes back positive. But it's tricky. I feel like it's a very tricky one. I just felt like everything was going too well for Chelsea. Then this news comes out to kind of just cause a bit of a shit stir. But actually, funny enough, my dad saw him playing tennis in our tennis club yesterday. So maybe he's just finding other ways to stay fit outside of football, which is gym, tennis. He wasn't playing very good apparently, so clearly it's enough.
That tattoo's coming back to haunt him again.
It is, but yeah, no, it's disappointing. But one thing I will say, maybe a bit selfish, but if there was one player we could do without, it was Mudryk. It's not like we're talking about Cucurella, Caicedo, Cole Palmer. It was a player that was slightly on the fringes, would come off the bench occasionally, would play the Conference League game, but we're almost spoiled for choice in wingers. We've got Neto, we've got Sancho, we've got Madueke, we've got Joao Felix and Cuckoo Palmer, who can also play on the wings. So yeah, I feel like it's not too much of a blow in terms of the kind of performances and kind of what he offered us this season. It's a blow for kind of the image of the club and the kind of potential repercussions that both the player and the club may face.
Yeah, it is. I mean, so I did a video on this a couple of days ago on the channel, and I was a bit sort of sympathetic towards Mudryk because I felt obviously, he's a young player. He hasn't really hit the ground running at Chelsea. He's always sort of split the fan base. Some think that he's got the talent to break into the squad. Some don't really see the qualities that others do in him as well. But having a couple of days to reflect, I just think this is, self accountability has to come into this somewhere because as a professional athlete, whether that's football, boxing, I think Povetkin, another a well-known boxer as well, Dillian White, another boxer, they've all had banned substances within them. And I said the other day, and I still stand by this statement, it's not, normally it is guilty until proven innocent, whereas in the sporting world, especially when it comes to drugs, it is innocent until guilty until proven innocent. You have to prove your innocence because whilst he may not have been aware that he was putting something that was banned into his own body, which is his responsibility as well. He has to hold himself a bit of accountable because you have to question things. I was watching the John Obi Mikel podcast, and he touches on this as well, makes very good points in terms of, he even during his day as a Chelsea player and when he was, probably playing with Nigeria as well, he was offered things a lot of the time, and you just have to say no to them. You've got so much riding on playing for the one of the best clubs in England. You've got a professional contract with a top club. You're being paid thousands of pounds a week. Is it really worth jeopardizing all of that just to increase the recovery time on or reduce the recovery time on exercises or whatever the drug is supposed to do? So I do think there has to be an element of self accountability on Mykhailo Mudryk's part, because whether that's he's done it away from the Chelsea camp while he's not been at Cobham, or he's done it on international duty or whatever, it's still, the decision is his. No one's forced him to put anything within his body at all. So it is a shame for the club, for him, but a lot of this could be avoided if you just potentially, with any drug, just say no to it. If it was recreational or whatever, you'd say no to the drug. So I think it has to be more so in sport when you're employed by a club, you're representing the club, so it is going to come back and people are going to talk about it. So I think I've changed my opinion on the whole situation. I do think there has to be a lot of self accountability on Mudryk, regardless of whether it's come back as the A sample is positive. Let's hope that the B sample comes back with that. But if we're looking at previous history of these drug testing, normally the A sample and the B sample will give you the same return result. So it isn't looking good for him. What's next for Mudryk? Because if the B sample does come back, that it is still a positive result, and there is a banned substance within that period of time that he's been tested. we know that Paul Popper, as you said, was initially given a 4-year ban. We know that Sharapova was given a very lengthy ban in tennis. As I said, Povetkin, I think, was banned for I think 2 years in boxing. The same for Dillian White as well. So, the sporting governing bodies do take this as a very serious punishment when someone is caught for taking a performance enhancing drugs. So what happens to Mudryk? Let's say he gets a 3, maybe 4-year ban. He appeals, it doesn't get reduced. Is that the end of his time at Chelsea?
Oh, most likely, yeah. I can't really see us maybe retaining him. Maybe we'll help him kind of like get back on his feet and find the best option for him after his bans, or maybe help him reduce the length of his ban. But I can't really see Chelsea retaining him if he does kind of face a ban. He also just has to deal with the repercussions and the consequences of his actions. I do kind of agree with what you were saying at the beginning, though. I do feel a bit of sympathy and sorry for him in the way that maybe he's a player that's adapting to a new country, a new league, a new language. He's still living in the flat I think the club gave him when he first moved in January 2023, which makes me feel like he maybe hasn't really adjusted yet to life in London, hasn't really bought like a big house near Cobham and the training ground, and he's still really finding his feet in England. And I would not be surprised if he's feeling a bit homesick, loneliness, maybe seasonal depression, and he's maybe having some issues, challenging issues with mental health as well. And it could be something maybe that he just did in the moment and he instantly regrets. And let's remember, he's still very, very young and very naive as well. He's not like a player that's maybe had, a lengthy education. I wouldn't compare him to guys like Azpilicueta, Frank Lampard. So I think maybe it was just a naive decision that he did, or maybe, like you said, it was something he wasn't aware what he was putting in his body. But there should also be a bit of self-accountability. And yeah, if the ban happens, he has to face it. And the big question is what Chelsea will do with the situation where they terminate his contract, whether they keep him and retain him to kind of just help him kind of endure that period. But I think it's most likely going to be the first option, which is we'll terminate his contract, unfortunately. And I'm sure when he signed the contract in the first place, there was something in that contract stating exactly this potential scenario and what the repercussions would be.
Yeah, I mean, he'll definitely be in breach of contract. In most workplaces, whether you're working in Sainsbury's or you're working for Chelsea, I'm sure if you was to be found taking some sort of drugs that were banned within society or banned as a sports performance and enhancement, you're in breach of your contract. These players are players that are getting paid thousands and thousands of pounds a week. You can have bad advisors around you, but you risk a lot to taking a drug that you don't necessarily need as well. Like you said at the very start of this, this is a guy that's in the gym constantly. We see him post on social media that he's in the gym, he's playing professional football, he's training every day at Cobham. I get you want to be better at something, but just perfect your skills on the grass. Go and do that. Go and take a run. Go and use the treadmill, the Stairmaster. Go and lift your weights in the gym. You don't need to take drugs. So, I get, mistakes happen, but this is a very costly mistake for Mudryk. And I agree with you. I think the termination would probably be the first route. The club clearly are paying him, as I said, in the region around £100,000 a week. So it's a lot of money to be paying out. I can't see us keeping someone who, even if he was banned for 2 years, I still think the way that this club is currently being ran with the ownership at the moment, they won't stand for that. I think they'd want him off the books as quick as possible, free up some money. So,
yeah, I know we're going to talk about Shamrock Rovers in a bit, but I have one final question on this. Do you think Chelsea could be facing some kind of consequence, like a points reduction or something like that? Because he was fielded on the pitch against Heidenheim, probably under the performing with these types of drugs in his body. And that's kind of giving us some kind of unfair advantage. Do you think UEFA, the Premier League, could look at that and maybe give us some kind of points reduction, some kind of fine?
I'd be surprised. I think the only way that could come about is if it comes out that Chelsea are the ones that were supplying him the drugs. I think if we were which is very, very unlikely, but, never say never. I think if we were the ones that were handing him the drugs, then yeah, I think, Chelsea would be held liable, but I just don't see that happening. And I really don't think Chelsea were aware of what was maybe happening until late into October. Maybe when I'm assuming that Chelsea would have found out these results before the public found out the results, which is why the sick suddenly appeared. within the press conferences when Maresca was asked about Mudryk. He was very vague, very detailed about certain players' injuries when, the last couple of weeks. But with Mudryk, it was always just he's sick, he's ill. So I think the club would potentially trying to protect the player very quickly. Maybe that's the way that they're trying to get out. I don't think Chelsea would have known about this. I think Chelsea are trying to run the club as best as they can. I don't think points deduction would come into it for us unless, like I said, we were the ones that were sort of feeding it through a drip through his body and ourselves. But I don't see that being the case. What do you think? Do you think there could be?
Yeah. Short answer is I fully agree with what you said. Unless Chelsea are the ones found guilty of supplying him the drug at Cobham or through like their medical facilities, then I feel like it should be very unfair for us to kind of face some kind of consequence from this. It seems to have happened post international duty or during international when he was abroad with Ukraine, so it could easily have been like some kind of international physio that was there alongside him that wanted to help him with his recovery and maybe a bad influence on trying to get him to kind of regain his full form and fitness. But yeah, I fully agree. I feel like it'd be very, very harsh should we face some kind of points reduction or maybe even disqualification from UEFA tournaments as well. Yeah,
I don't see it. I mean, hopefully it doesn't come to that. But last thing I will say is we have got other players, like you said, very early in this. We've got very good players that will just step up and, they'll probably relish the opportunity now. There's one less player that they're having to compete with, for a position in Maresca's side. So as selfish as it sounds, that is probably a good thing that has come out of all of this, is that it might make other players, now I'm thinking about Jadon Sancho, João Felix, maybe Christopher Nkunku can occupy more time, more thought process in Maresca's plans and try and get themselves in this in as a regular in Maresca's squad.
Absolutely.
Let's move on. Let's not bash him too much more. But let's talk about some positive stuff. Obviously, this week as well, we know that Josh Acheampong has signed a new deal, 2029, signed, sealed, and delivered. Really good news. I think it broke Wednesday. The news that he'd signed a deal, a long-term deal at Chelsea, and played very well yesterday, which we're going to get into. But just on Josh Acheampong, Tyrique George, now both integrated fully, permanently into the senior squad at Chelsea. What's your thoughts on that in terms of the promotion? Let's call it promotion. And Josh Acheampong finally got the deal done. We've finally signed him down.
Yeah, no, really, really pleased for the pair of them. It felt like Maresca, Josh Acheampong really caught Maresca's eye in pre-season and then kind of just at that Barrow game, never really fully managed to get back into the team because maybe his contract negotiations. But yeah, really pleased for them. It almost felt like there was a big question mark when we signed all these players in the last few windows. What does this mean for the youth products, for the youth, the academy? Will they be able to be given a chance? But I feel like the two of them being promoted to the senior team is evidence that there's still kind of a pathway for these players to get into the first team, play football, get minutes, learn from experienced players. And that's what the last few games have proved that for us. Them travelling to Astana would have been a huge kind of experience, both personally and from a football perspective as well. And then having them kind of play at Stamford Bridge yesterday, getting a 5-1 win over Shamrock Rovers and both playing really, really well was also very promising. And then there was a video circulating on social media of Maresca explaining why they got promoted and the role now that the senior players around them have to kind of adopt to make sure they feel valued, they feel like they can learn from them. And it just felt like a very kind of nice video to watch and showing that Maresca actually genuinely cares about, these players making it from top from bottom back to top level. I think one interesting message he sent me on WhatsApp is like, whose lockers did they get? Because we saw a video of their names being pinned on the two lockers, and it probably means that two players probably gave up their lockers. I think you mentioned Chilwell's name, probably no longer a part of the first team, no longer maybe has a locker. But yeah, that's something irrelevant to the whole fact that they deserve it, both Josh Acheampong and Tyrique George.
Yeah, no, I think it's some positive news, and I think it shows that whilst we're signing youngsters, we're also still focused heavily on the players. I think Acheampong, has signed since he signed when he was under 8s at Chelsea, so he's been literally at the club, throughout his whole career. And we're signing youngsters from South America and European teams as well, but the players that have represented the club from a very young age are still being thought of in terms of first team appearances. And to see him come in and play a really good role, like you said, against Astana. Obviously made his debut under Pochettino against Spurs last season, but to sort of see him a little bit more now, and put in some really good performances so far back to back in the Conference League is promising signs that we've got a good player on our hands there. With Tyrique George as well, very good, very promising. I did want to say that it almost feels like there's more. If you remember back to when Thomas Tuchel was at the club, we had a very family unit, very solid family sort of. It felt like there was a family unit, and we kind of lost that when Tuchel left. When Todd Bowley came in to take ownership of the club, it kind of felt like that diminished very quickly. But even yesterday, watching some of the older players that weren't even involved in the game, congratulating Mark Gu, congratulating Tyrique George, Josh Acheampong, Harvey Vale as well. It just feels like there's a bit more togetherness now at this club, and it feels like we've kind of got this stability back in the club as well. But for them, both of those to be in that dressing room now, they're going to learn a lot. They're going to experience a lot. They're going to have highs and lows. I think one of the good things that was mentioned yesterday, or I said it on the watch along as well that we did, was I hope their standards don't drop now, because they're in the senior squads. They've been hungry to get in there. You can see that they've been dying to get into this senior squad. I want this, and even Mudryk said it as well. He said, this is just a start for them, but I don't want them to sort of drop their levels just because they're in that senior squad now and they feel part of the main squad. I want them to be just as hungry as they were, whilst they were trying to get into there, whether in that development squad. They still need to continue that, because as quick as you can get into that senior squad, the quicker you can get dropped out of it. We've seen Ben Chilwell, Conor Gallagher, Mason Mount and others leave that club very quickly. So we need to see them do something over the next 6 to 12 months.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like their standards shouldn't drop, and hopefully as well there's still plenty of opportunities for them to play football. Reece James' injury and Malagusto maybe not being always favoured by Maresca could pave a way for Acheampong to start maybe Premier League minutes. Tyrique George, now that Mudryk's not in the picture, could potentially start as well. The odd game. We've got Morecambe in the FA Cup coming in January. We've got more Conference League games now that we secured a place in the knockout. And I still think we've got such a good squad that we can maybe still afford. I don't want to say afford because it's still a brilliant squad, but like play the similar squad, a very heavily rotated squad in the next couple round of 16 quarterfinals of the Conference League, and then maybe come the semis and maybe the final. We can start to think of playing the Caicedos, the Cucurellas, the Palmers. But for the time being, there's no reason to drop any of those players from that Conference League squad, and that's including Tyrique George and Acheampong.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I want to say as well, but we'll include it in the Shamrock Rovers segment as well now. But I thought Harvey Vale, I think he should be next. I feel like he's knocking on the door to get into that senior squad, because I think he's such a good talent. The last couple of seasons, he's proven himself at development level. I feel like he's one of those players that if we keep him at the club, we should be promoting him to the senior squad as well. I know we can't do that for everyone, but if not into the senior squad, then get him a loan to a championship club, because I feel like he's at that level where he needs the experience now to go out and play a bit more competitive football. But let's move on to Shamrock Rovers, because obviously Harveyville did come on second half. But what was your thoughts? 5-1 win, unbeaten, still in the Conference League, 6 out of 6. Surely this is our opportunity to still use some of these players like Acheampong, Tyrique George, Rex Saki and Harvey Vale throughout until the very final if we make it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, job done. 5-1 winners, Shamrock Rovers at Stamford Bridge. First time we've ever played an Irish team in our history, which was quite something. But no, I was pleased with the game, the result, the performance. I thought a lot of those players who maybe don't get as much football as they should be getting, or maybe given the how much quality there is in our squad, the likes of Mark Guay, Drewsby Hall, Renato Vega, I thought they all performed and excelled. But yeah, you can't really say much when you score 5 goals. I think the one bit of criticism is we conceded a goal. It was a tough one. It was a heavily deflected strike off, I think, Cassidy that went in the back of the net. But then our reaction to conceding that goal was brilliant. We found ourselves 4-1 up at half-time, and then we could bring the likes of Harvey Vale on for the second half. It was a bit of a confusing one for me, because if you remember, he kind of did play the odd couple games under Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah.
I think in 2022, I think he played against Brentford in the League Cup, played away to Zenit St. Petersburg in Russia. But then I think that went out on loan to Bristol City, if I'm not mistaken, or Bristol Rovers.
Yep.
I'm not really sure how that loan worked out for him. And then now he's slowly getting reintegrated back into the youth setup. But yeah, it's exciting to see him come off the bench. There was a few other youngsters, Raksaki, who came on again. But no, I'm pleased. I'm really pleased that we finished top of the Conference League, maximum points, best goal difference, I believe. Just didn't drop a single point throughout it. And I think the most important thing as well is we got automatic qualification now. We can avoid that kind of playoff phase, which I don't think was ever kind of going to be a question really. But I think I mentioned this in the previous episode. It's like even when I saw the fixtures, you said we should be winning every single one of those. And now in my head, I'm like, yeah, given our quality, given we're Chelsea, we should. But like I said, traveling to Astana, traveling to Greece, to Heidenheim, these type of games, you always drop the odd point somewhere. But I think that's a credit to us for just getting the job done, staying consistent, and always putting in kind of good performances on these away trips and at Stamford Bridge. So yeah, 18 points, 6 out of 6, and top of the Conference League table.
Yeah, and it was convincing. The lineup didn't really surprise me. I thought Cucurella again was outstanding. I think I was shouting him out as the best left back in Europe last night. I don't know if I went a bit too far there, but I think he's up there. You know, if you think about players that we've signed, the most improved players across, you know, Premier League, across certain European clubs as well, he's got to be one of the most improved. And when I say improved, I don't mean from just this season. I think from the day that we signed him, we knew there was potential there. He had a bit of a dip in form last season, but then the back end of the season picked it up again. You know, went to the Euros, played superb there, came back, he's continued that same form throughout, and spent most of last night in midfield. You know, he was just almost given a free rein, free roll to just roam in between midfield. He didn't necessarily have to drop back too much because obviously we've retained a lot of the possession. You know, Dizazi, Vega and Acheampong were able to deal with anything that Shamrock Rovers, bar the goal, you know, were able to try and attack us with. So I was really impressed, really impressive to Tyrique George in the first half. I felt in the second half things sort of died down a little bit for him. I don't know whether it was just the fact he's playing the full 90 minutes or he just felt more comfortable on the left, but I didn't think he was more as effective on the right hand side when Mudryk went off. But credit to all the players. You know, Mark Gu, you know, born 2006. When I read that yesterday, I was like, 2006. I mean, I said yesterday, I felt old, but you know, he's proven himself. You know, he's proven that he's a striker that we've kind of overlooked a little bit. We've kind of said he might need to go out on loan, but watching him in the Conference League, I think there's a role for him to play even this season at Chelsea, whether that's in the FA Cup or the latter stages of the Conference League and some games in the Premier League. But what's your thoughts? Is he potentially ready for involvement more so in the Premier League this season?
Yeah, I really like the look of him. I feel like we only got to see him like for the odd like substitution appearance during pre-season. But I feel like now he's really kind of finding his feet at the football club and getting more minutes of football. And I feel Joe Cole and TNT was comparing him a bit to Luis Suarez, how he's always in the right place, the right time, but very reactive to kind of mistakes. And if you look at his first 2 goals, sure, they came off like Shamrock Rovers mistakes, but he was there, he was ready. And that's sometimes what you want from your number 9, just to be like a poacher and be ready to pounce on those errors from the opposition. But for me, the pick of the bunch was the 3rd goal, the header, because that's not luck. He's positioning his body, I think, to leap in that way and then hit it with the back of his head. And if you look at what he does, it's the striker's marking him, so he just takes a step forward to lose the striker and then leap up there. So it's really good football. And then like you said, I feel like we're spoiled for choice with attacking quality and depth, but there's definitely a part to play for him this season, whether that's in the Premier League and the FA Cup, continuing to be the number 9 in the Conference League. But I'd be quite disappointed if we loaned him out to Sevilla in January, because that's the big rumour. I think the Spanish La Liga club that want to get his signature in January. But yeah, I feel like there's definitely a path to play, and he's proving to be a bit of a bargain for the price we paid from Barcelona last summer.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should keep him. Maresca was asked that question. I think it was by Joe Cole yesterday to say, you know, or maybe it was Shay Given, actually. I can't remember. I think it was Shay Given who said, you know, we've got 3 strikers at the club, and they included Nkunku, and Maresca was quick to shut that down to say that actually Nkunku's best role is number 10. He's better as a 10. Obviously, we've got Cole Palmer there, so you know the limitations to what Nkunku, the game time that Nkunku's going to get is very limited at the moment. So I think that rules out Nkunku as a striker. It leaves Jackson and it leaves Mark Gu. Now, should we get an injury to Nicholas Jackson or a suspension, then I would assume that Mark Gu is going to be the one that steps in to fill that void. he's got all the characteristics and ability for me to be one of the best footballers at this club. Yes, the goals were easy because he read the game well and he was able to intercept the mistakes from Shamrock Rovers. But his overall play yesterday was good, and even against Astana was even better as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. Hopefully we can keep him this season. But from what Maresca said at the end of that press conference after the game, I do feel there's going to be a couple of departures in the next couple of weeks at Chelsea, and I think he might be one of them.
Yeah, I think he asked another question about Dewsbury Hall, and he said like he can't either like confirm or deny it, and anything can happen in football, which is the kind of always the diplomatic response from managers. But yeah, just the last thing I want to say about the Shamrock game: special guest of honour for the last 2 games at Stamford Bridge, Mr. Thiago Silva and his family, back in London for Christmas, back at Stamford Bridge. And I think it just puts a massive smile on all Chelsea fans' faces when you get to see Thiago Silva back at the club that he seems to love so much. Only spent 4 years here, but almost seems to hold it in his heart in a more closer place than he did with Paris and Milan. So yeah, so good to see him. And I think you WhatsApped me about this too, how there's definitely a role for him to play maybe post-retirement, whether that be a coach, whether that be some kind of ambassador for the club. But yeah, absolutely love the legend that is Thiago Silva.
I did say yesterday, last night, that I think he'll come back in the summer. I think he's obviously still very much heavily involved. He's got a child, his son, that plays for the youth academy setup. So I think he'll come back as a coach. I think he wants to be a coach at Chelsea. I think he loves the club. He's obviously fell in love with living in London. He's settled here. And obviously he wanted to go back and fulfill his final dream of playing, for his club that he grew up supporting in Brazil. So he'll be back 100%. There's pictures of this week as well. I think John Terry met up with him at Cobham. So, I mean, that as a defensive coach partnership would be, I did say it last night, that to me personally, that would be one of the best things at Chelsea if you could get both of those in the senior squad as defensive coaches. I mean, they don't come any better than Thiago Silva and John Terry.
Absolutely, yeah. You get them on the pitch, I think they could still do a decent job.
Yeah. Let's roll them out for Sunday. We might need them. Just before we move on to Everton, just as we were recording, I don't know if Maresca might be doing his press conference now actually, but apparently Reece James is back in partial team training, which is excellent news.
Until when?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm trying to find the positives out of it, but the fact that he's in team training, it says here, will now build on his condition, and then when he will be ready to play. Sorry, I can't see the rest of it because I'm reading off my watch. But basically, I think it means they'll build up his condition when he's ready to play. It says here that Romeo Lavia probably will struggle to play Sunday. He says we'll see. So I think we can rule out Lavia. So, but anyway, let's talk about Everton. Goodison Park. We don't have the best of records at Goodison Park, but if we win this game, regardless of what happens elsewhere, we do top the Premier League for Christmas, which, as things stand, normally whoever is at the top of the league at Christmas tends to go on to win the Premier League. But what's your thoughts going into Goodison? Last game at Goodison Park against Chelsea and Everton. Difficult ground, difficult game to come into in a busy start to the busy Christmas fixture list.
Really, really tough fixture. We always seem to play them around Christmas time. I feel this is the one fixture probably alongside the Arsenal away one that I always kind of dread because given they're a bit of a bogey team for us. I even like when I saw our fixtures in December, there was Tottenham, there was Villa, there was Brentford, but I feel this one really stood out for being the toughest test. Away trips to Goodison are always tough, but especially now more than ever, they've picked up a bit of form. I think they beat Wolves really comfortably. Recently, they got a very impressive draw at the Emirates, 0-0 on a clean sheet. And they've also got new ownership now as well. So that's going to kind of bring a bit more of a feel-good factor amongst the fans and the players. So I know things were slowly going a bit toxic and then Moshiri, I believe. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I'm going to say it, and I hate to say this, but I would maybe take a draw from it. Depending on how the game plans out, I would potentially take a draw because it's just one of those fixtures that you can walk away from Goodison no matter their form with like a point. Sometimes you'd be quite chuffed with that, especially like you said, given our recent form there. I think we lost 2-0 last season at Goodison. I think that was the game Reece James went off really badly injured.
Yeah.
And I think Sanchez as well had to be replaced by Petrovic, and we never saw Sanchez again for this season. But it's a tough one. They've got some decent players, guys like McNeil, guys like Doucouré. I know a lot of people might find this controversial, but I rate Beto. I think he's a good number 9.
Holds the ball up really well.
Holds the ball up. He's
Yeah.
tall. He's a good player. I just feel like he's not really given the opportunity yet, and potentially Dyche maybe needs to play him alongside a Calvert-Lewin to get the best out of him. But it's going to be a tough game. It really depends on how the game plans out. I'm pleased that we managed to rest a lot of players on Thursday once again, and we'll probably play like the Enzo Fernandez, the Caicedos, Palmer's, Pedro Neto's back from his suspension, Jackson as well. One big loss will be Cucurella. Like you mentioned, He's probably the best left back or the most informed left back in the European football right now. And he'll be missing this one through the suspension that he picked up against Brentford, which is a big loss for us because I think we mentioned in an episode a couple months ago who our most important player is. And we both actually dismissed Palmer quite quickly, given the depth we have in that position. I think we both either went for Cucurella or Caicedo as our most important Chelsea player. And Sunday's going to be an even bigger kind of evidence or test of whether Cucurella kind of fits that position. But yeah, tough game. I know for you it's kind of a special one given how close you live in the area to the stadium.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are your thoughts?
It's difficult. It's difficult ground to go to for any team, whether they're in form, out form. Got world-class strikers. I think it's a ground that if you don't start well, you suddenly you start to doubt whether you're going to get the 3 points. And I think that's going to be the ultimate thing on Sunday, whether we start the game really well. We need to get an early goal because I think that the crowd, as much as it's a cliche thing to say, but they are the 12th man at Goodison. They just make it very hostile and very difficult when you're there. It's just a really intimidating ground to go to, and they make it difficult for any team to go there. So, and this being the last season for them, I think they're going to be extra amped up. I think the fact that they've got this new ownership in, and of course we have to play them as soon as that announcement comes out. So it's like double whammy. So I do think it's going to be really difficult. But I'm confident as well, based on the fact of how well we've started the season. We've come up against a couple of tests. You think back to that Spurs game a couple of weekends ago, 2-0 down, and then we come back to win the game. So I'm more confident now with Maresca at the helm and how we've been playing, and the fact that, like you just said, we've rested a lot of the players that played against Shamrock Rovers, who essentially won't be playing on Sunday. I think we stand a very good chance. We just have to be on the ball with everything. Cucurella is going to be a massive loss. I'm trying to think. I was trying to think last night who comes in for him. We know that Vega's there. I don't think Vega had the best of games on against Shamrock Rovers. I think he played well, but not where I could see him starting on Sunday and doing a job that Cucurella has been doing this season. So tough, but I think we'll get the job done. I do.
It's funny because I was going to say the best football match I've ever seen, but I'll change that to the most entertaining football match I've ever seen was at Goodison Park in summer 2014 when we beat them 6-3.
Yeah.
I was at that game and I just remember Diego Costa running riots, Mikel assisting with back heel.
Matic.
Ramirez, Matic, I think Ivanovic got one in the opening minutes. But yeah, always just that yellow kit, that game against Everton always stands out when we play Everton at Goodison. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one. You mentioned Cucurella, huge loss for us. I think Vega will play left back and we'll look at maybe Tosin and potentially Colwell. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one, especially if Lavia is injured. I don't think we'll be seeing maybe Caicedo as the inverted right back. It might probably be Gusto with Caicedo alongside Enzo in midfield. But yeah, I'll still stand by what I said, and I think I'll take a draw. Yeah,
I agree. Sorry, I'm getting updates. We're recording this as the press conference is going along. So Badiashile, Fofana, both still out. As we knew, João Felix fine, Nani Madueke both fine. Lavia will struggle on Sunday, and obviously we know that Reece James is back in partial training. So I agree with you. I said last night, I wonder if this is a game. and I'm going to get shot down for this. This might get as many comments as when I said that Trent should sign for Chelsea a couple of weeks ago. But is this a game where we trust Josh Acheampong to come in as right back and we play Malo Gusto as left back?
It's a shout. And it'll be a huge test for Acheampong to see if he's like really at that level.
Do you risk it? Do you risk it against a time when you can go top of the league? You know, you're in the Premier League now. Maresca hasn't really trusted any of his youth prodigies to do anything like that in the league. So do you trust him to do it?
So like, if you don't play them in a fixture like this, it's when do you trust them after they prove they can do it in the League Cup, in the Conference League? And more often than not, when we've played youngsters in these type of games, I just remember Gilmore against Liverpool in the FA Cup, it often does pay off. So
remember Thomas Callas a few years ago against Liverpool as well.
Callas against Liverpool, I think McEachran at times, I think under Ancelotti. I would actually wouldn't be against that idea. I've also just seen the list of the playoff draw for the Conference League. It's just been released. Ghent, Betis, Copenhagen, Heidenheim. Panathinaikos against Vikingor. So there's a few kind of good matchups there. Ghent, Betis, Copenhagen, Heidenheim, which means a few of those teams will get knocked out.
I think we can still play Heidenheim, can't we? I think there's 4 options I think we can get.
Yeah, but would you be able to play a team again that you just played in the groups?
I believe so. From what I was reading last night, there's 4. I can't remember what the 4 teams are, but I'm sure Heidenheim was one of them. Which I'm not sure how it works. I didn't think you should be able to or would be able to play a team that you've already played, but without knowing the sort of technicalities. But I think Everton will be a difficult game. Before we wrap up, as always, we haven't forgotten. We are going to do our predicted lineups. I'm going to let you go first, though, Theo, as always.
Oh, you've kind of swayed me there with Acheampong.
I don't think he'll start. I think I'm just wishful. It's almost like me saying Jurgensen's going to start in goal. He's not going to start, but we would love him to start.
Yeah, especially if you play 90 minutes on
Thursday night. He's not going to play at all.
Yeah, so let's go with, this is predicted, so let's go with Sanchez.
Yep. Let's caveat, this is a predicted, our preferred, not what, before we get shot down.
Yeah, Sanchez as the predicted keeper to start. Then I'm going to go Vega, Tosin, Colwell. So Colwell as the left wing back, centre back. Tosin as the right centre back, and then Malo Gusto as the right back. Especially, I think that's pretty much confirmed as the centre back pairing, given the injuries to Fofana and Bajashil. Centre mids, Caicedo and Enzo. Again, I think it would be maybe a bit too big test for like Dewsbury Hall after he played yesterday. And with Lavia injured, I think those two kind of pick themselves.
I think Enzo's already there, isn't he? Yep.
Oof, this is where it gets tough each week. I'll go with Palmer as the 10, Sancho and Neto either side of him.
Ooh.
With Jackson as the striker.
No Madueke?
No Madueke. We played yesterday, and I think his game against Brentford, he's a good player, but just frustrating.
Yeah,
his decision making, his selfishness.
Even last night.
Even last night again. So I think it's quite telling as well that he started yesterday. It probably means he won't start on Sunday.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I actually agree with this lineup. Do I? Yeah, I do. I think we need to start Sancho in this game because I think he'll be a threat against whether it's Ashley Young that starts right back or Seamus Coleman. You'll think it'll be Mikalenko on the other side for Everton as well. I think if they're both fully fit. So I think Neto, Sancho playing, running towards those two just fills me with confidence. Jackson slowly showing us that he is the guy. I take a lot of things what I said back. He started the season really well, so let's hope that can continue as well. But I think we as much as we've got squad depth, we're slowly losing a lot of players now. We're losing Badiashile, Fofana, Reece James. Dewsbury Hall did take a knock, although I think he's okay before he came off yesterday. We haven't got that much depth as we think.
But the bench against Brentford was a very youthful one, I felt. So I think we'll be seeing a similar bench that we saw against Brentford now that Mudryk's suspended. Fofana's injured, Badiashile's injured,
Cucurella's suspended.
Cucurella's suspended, so I think we'll be seeing probably Tyrique George,
Yeah.
Acheampong, potentially Raksaki and Mark Gui on the bench again.
Yeah, obviously we've got Nkunku, as a sort of another outlet where they can potentially rely on in this game. But I think if we can start this game well and we can silence that Goodison crowd, I think we win that game. I think we win it. I'm trying to think when Liverpool play. If they play, I think they'll play on the Saturday.
They're playing Spurs this week, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Is that Saturday? Now, if that is Saturday, and this is all just me in my head, so ignore me. But
Sunday they're playing.
Okay, is it after us? It's after
Sunday,
us.
4:30.
Yeah, see, that's why I hate. We should have been on after them. So, just a mentality thing. I think it's always easier to play. If Liverpool had already played, say, the Saturday, it would have just been easier for us to play that game. I think knowing that we kind of want to and have to win, it might cast a bit of doubt in some of these players' minds. That's all. I just think it is a bit of a difficult one. But nonetheless, we've got the squad, we've got the form. We are on paper better than Everton, as we know. So yeah, I'm not worried about playing Everton as they are at the moment. They need to win more than we do. Let's put it like that.
I just feel like it's one of those. Every kind of like season we've gone to win the Prem, I just feel like we get a result at Goodison Park. So
I'll take
it. I'll leave it at that. But,
I'll take it.
But yeah, what is your score prediction?
So I'm going to go, I nearly got it, well, didn't nearly get it right. I said 4-0 last night, but I'm going to go 2-1. I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet. I think we've struggled all season to do that, whether that's Sanchez or Jurgensen in goals. So I'm going to go 2-1. Goal scorers is going to be Jackson and Sancho, I think, for me.
I just feel like that Goodison crowd and the feel-good factor with the new ownership might just give Everton a bit of an extra motivation. So I'm going to go 2-2. And goal scorers, I'm going to go with Tosin Heather, and I'll go with a Palmer. Yeah, let's go Palmer.
It's been quiet, hasn't he? Like in terms of goals, not in terms of his performance, but Cole Palmer's he's not been sort of hitting the goals as he did last season, which is to be expected.
Every time we say that, he comes back and puts.
That's why I've said it.
Scores 4 against Brighton, scores 2 against Tottenham. So yeah, let's fingers crossed he gets back on the score sheet on Sunday.
Definitely. But let us know your thoughts. Let us know your score lines. Let us know your predicted lineups as well. As I said at the start of this, do not forget to subscribe to the video. Linktree link is in the description as well. So make sure you hit that before you leave and enjoy the weekend when you get to it. Theo, as always, thank you very much. Let's hope for 3 points on Sunday. I don't know if we're going to record before the Christmas period. So if we don't, let's just say we don't, we might do. We might surprise you for a Christmas episode. But if we don't, then everyone enjoy the Christmas period. Drink lots of Baileys, lots of beers, turkey, enjoy yourselves. But if we are back before then, make sure you tune in as well. So enjoy.